Cami, you put yourself on the line. You're wholeheartedly committed to what is a physically challenging job as much as mentally challenging. You put yourself at risk. You just mentioned, the situation a couple of months ago. You even had your son in the car. Would it not be easier to pack this in, go back to gaming, buy yourself a Dyson Hoover and, be more of that sort of female role that perhaps is more acceptable?
That would be boring, I think. It wouldn't really, it wouldn't really.
Yes, but it would be much more convenient and much more comfortable.
Yes, for sure I have those thoughts from time to time.
You do?
I do, but they are very, very short times. Because then I look out and I see the amazing nature, you see the birds passing by, and you don't want them to get, you don't want to get illegally shot, you don't want illegal dumping to occur. And I would never be able to forgive myself to work in a profession where I don't want to work and see all these issues where I could actually have helped to prevent them. So I think it's, no, I would go nuts working in something else because the issues will still continue to happen. So I think it's...
Now we're going to talk about the environment for a second because I want to empower women and everybody, but I mean this is the she word, so we're specifically talking to women, but not only to speak out and be committed to something that is important like you are, but also to care about the environment. So first of all, you talked about these illegalities, you talked about environmental challenges that we're facing, which seem to float in and out of being topical when it comes to the news. Whenever we have a climate conference or a climate discussion, suddenly everyone's thinking about the environment and then it goes away. And it's so many questions on my mind, but let's keep it local for a second. What are the offences that you're talking about? You mentioned just then illegal dumping. You mentioned, obviously there's littering, but is there other challenges to the environment? For Malta, what are we facing? What are we facing that we wouldn't necessarily even know about?
Malta is actually quite special because of the small size of the country. I'm meeting rangers all around Europe that comes from larger countries. They would still have similar issues, but not as concentrated as we have here. Due to the fact that we are such a small country, things that are sustainable abroad suddenly become less sustainable in Malta. And that is why we have quite restrictive regulations for the environment.
Sustainable such as?
So it can be, for example, to go wild camping. Certain councils will have restrictions due to the fact that if a lot of people do this activity, it will negatively affect the situation in the council.
But isn't camping good for us to be out in the environment?
It is, so that's why we have to balance it. We have to really balance it.
Wow, okay.
So for example, in Melilla Local Council, you should stay within the camping areas. And for that you need a permit. But in other councils you can go wild camping. So it's just a matter of where and when an activity should happen. And it also boils down a lot to the lack of enforcement resources. Because if you cannot monitor something that is happening in nature that potentially might cause damage, they tend to restrict a lot in Malta, which I personally don't agree with. And I'm trying to instead educate people on how to do these activities in the correct way. So we lessen the burden on nature. But yes, illegal camping in a bad way. So say there is good camping and then the bad way of camping, where, for example, you leave a lot of litter, dump your waste, cut the vegetation, and so on. Fires is a hot topic in Malta as well. Due to the climate change, it's getting warmer. We have a lot of vegetation that can actually go up in flames if we are not careful. So yeah, how to do a fire, where you can do it, that's another matter. I mean, we do have tree protected zones. We have nature reserves where you cannot do a fire, for example, and still we see a lot of badly done fires by very irresponsible people who don't even have water with them to take it out.
Oh, wow.
Then we have poaching and illegal hunting, which is quite a big one in Malta as well, unfortunately. I would say those are the main ones, and even cutting of trees. People are not aware what is a protected tree in Malta and what is not. And when can you cut a tree and when can you not? So there's a lot of lack of knowledge that I'm trying to tackle as well with educative posts and so on.
it's always a question that I struggle with. But if the environment is what we live in, why, as human beings, do we not care more?
I think it is a matter of that you don't see the impact very fast. So, for example, when COVID hit, I think everyone knew someone that got really sick or even unfortunately passed away that was very, very close to us, so we acted directly. Everyone wore the mask, we stayed at home, we took precautions. But when it comes to the environment, you will not really see the impact until later on, and it takes a lot of individuals. So, for example, if I go, I hate to use camping as an example because, like you said, it is good to go camping, but we can speak later about how I'm working with this. But let's take camping, for example. Malta is small. We have 500,000 people, something like that. I take my tent, I place it somewhere. I don't even cut anything. I just place it on some soft vegetation. I might do a fire pit with a small bonfire, which abroad is very common. Then I take my tent, I remove the fire pit a bit, and I leave the site. Then the next day, someone else will come, and they will put a tent on the same spot where I had a tent. They will not be aware of what I did, but nature will, by time, degrade because of that one tent put exactly on the same spot. So this is a matter of like the balance between how many people are doing it, and humans are so unaware of what everyone else is doing. Animals are much better at this. The wildlife has this like built-in sense of sustainability. So we don't even take it into consideration. We're quite selfish as a species. So even if I see someone put a tent there, I will still put it there, and I won't really. I would say it's just one. It's okay. The same with littering. It's just one bottle.
One bottle.
So humans have this in their mind that it's only one. I, as a human, is so tiny on Earth that I have no impact whatsoever. And I think that is what it boils down to. That we might not mean harm, but by this lack of knowledge of our impact, when a lot of people do it, we cause quite some damage.
I remember when a couple of years ago, a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Fiona, mentioned to me on a radio show, she mentioned the Pacific garbage patch. And then the garbage patches which are now in each of our oceans. Mm-hmm. And the size of these garbage patches. Now, at the time, it had a profound effect on me, and it completely changed the way that I thought. And that's because you could see from space the collective effect of everybody thinking it's one bottle. And suddenly you can see. Now, unfortunately, the garbage patches in the oceans were really talked about, really highlighted, really discussed. You don't really hear anyone talking about it anymore. Has it gone away, or do we just not care anymore?
I would say we do care, but when it comes to the environment, I think it's quite a scary topic for a lot of people. So I think people tend to close their eyes and ears because do we really want to think what will happen if we cannot solve this big issue? And to solve it, everyone has to be involved. Because if I just keep nature clean and everyone else keeps on trashing it, it will be quite a fight. So people have this feeling that it takes so much effort from so many people to solve this, so it will never be solved. That's what they have in mind. So they kind of just continue. Because it's scary to think that there is this issue that can easily be solved if we just work together. But people kind of feel so not empowered that they just continue their life and rather not think about what will happen later on in life. And we also have this in mind that it will happen maybe in hundreds and hundreds of years' time. It's not like that anymore. I think it will happen during our lifetime. And we are already affected by climate change and by...
what will happen in our lifetime?
I mean, nature... I actually, when people ask me, why are you so positive about the environment? I say, well, the environment will survive. It's the human race that won't. Because at one point, nature will not take what we are doing, and it's the humans that will be wiped out, not the other way around. We will not wipe out nature, and the human race will survive. It will be the other way around. And I think that nature already is showing us this.
Before we move on to what you're doing now and the impact, positive impact of that and where that route is taking you, I want to round up this thing about the environment by just asking you, what would you say, what can you say, what will you say to the people that you mentioned that are not already sold on protecting the environment, or even someone like me who is sold on protecting the environment but maybe isn't doing enough? What would your message to empower and to motivate someone to get fired up about the environment, and how? Because I also think this is a really big deal.
Yes.
How? I mean, is not buying your bottle of plastic Coke enough, or how? What and how?
This is a question I get a lot when I speak to school kids, especially because the teachers will say, like, please tell the kids how they matter, like that, how can they do something for the environment and like be passionate about it. And I always tell them that I usually hear this, that Malta is a small country. We don't matter, like we are so tiny that whatever we do will not affect anything. So I ask them that, because they usually mention China, for example. It's a big country, what they do matter. So I tell them, so one Chinese person and one Maltese person, don't they like affect the environment in the same way? And then they say, no, but China is bigger. I said, I'm not talking about China. I'm talking about one Chinese person in China and one Maltese person in Malta. These two human beings have the same impact. So we need to stop seeing that our country is small, China is big, and instead see what are we as individuals do. We need to really take it down on an individual level, because by human nature, we will follow each other. Someone will see someone doing something. They like the idea, they will try it out, and then it just like the ripple effect will just take off. So yes, be a bit more selfish. Don't look what other people are doing. It really doesn't matter. It's a lot about integrity. When you end your day in the evening, have you done what you can? And this is not, you cannot say that there are 10 things that everyone should do. For example, a politician should not only bring a reusable bottle. They can do so much more with policies. But yes, a school child, student can maybe bring a reusable bottle to school. But there's a lot of this that very, very powerful people would just like pick 3 for the sea or whatever, like these campaigns. It's not enough if you're a politician. You have to do what you can, because we are all different, and that is the beauty, that you can do what you can. There are some things you can do that I cannot do, but I do what I can. And when everyone does that, we unite in a very perfect way, and change will happen.
So for me, Trudy Kerr, Cami, what can I do to make a difference, me personally?
I would say that whatever we do, you or whoever it is, when we do something, we should ask ourselves, if everyone does this, will it be a good thing or a bad thing? So for example, you're out running and you pick up things. You can say, if everyone did this is good. And of course it would be amazing if all the runners starting to pick up all the trash they see. And then if, for example, you want to go, it's 100 meters to a mini market, and you say, shall I take the car or shall I walk? And you tell yourself, if everyone take the car, these 100 meters, how would it be? Because if only you do it, it's okay. I mean, it's only one, you know. So you need to like integrate that thought. If everyone do this, will it be good or bad?
This is a fantastic way of thinking about it. I've never heard this before. We've spoken before. This is a really brilliant philosophy, which you can apply to every single aspect of your life.
It is important, though, to mention to not be too extreme in this. Because there are times, like, yes, you could maybe walk the 100 meters, but you have a bad foot or a bad knee. So one day per year or one day per month, you might want to take the car to ease the burden. So we shouldn't be too extreme in this. There are exceptions, and we need to not like go maybe all the way in. But we do our part, and as long as the majority of the times we do what is actually good, it will create a very, very big change.
Cami, what are you doing now? I always I always feel nervous when I ask you that question. But what are you up to now? You've been ranging at Maestral and looking after that area and protecting that area. But what's now on the agenda for Cami?
So I'm actually just about to hand in the application for my own NGO. Yes. So it will be Malta Ranger Unit, keeping it very simple. So what I have been doing in Maestral for the last 2 years will now be Malta and Gozo. So we are building up an NGO where we will employ rangers as well, and try to take the success story we had in Maestral to actually do it nationwide.
And the success story looks like what? What difference have you been able to make over the period that you've been in Maestral?
I would say that the small team that I worked with in Maestral, we managed to build bridges with the people that are already caring about the environment. We empowered them to start to report illegalities, how to report it. We taught them what is illegal, what is not. We also built bridges with communities that might be more prone to do illegalities. And we educated a lot of people on the green code, so to say, how to behave in nature. And also by approaching offenders in a non-aggressive manner. So it's not about walking up to someone and say, that is wrong, I'm gonna fine you, I'm gonna take you to court. We walk up and we have a conversation. We treat them as human beings. Yes, they did something wrong, but they are not less worth. They're still a human being. And that approach has shown to give us less enemies and more people being on our side in the long run. So I think that concept should be brought in a wider way as well. We cannot just wait for the few environmental police we have to tackle all the environmental issues we have in Malta. It has to come from the people. And the ranger unit is, we are civilians, so we don't have, we are not police. A lot of people think that we are like police, that we can go around and do a lot of stuff. We can do what you can do, literally. It's just that our way is a bit more organized. We are trained, we know how to document crime, we know what is illegal, what is not. So it does become a bit different. So yeah, I mean, it will be what we did in Maestral, but on a wider scale. So we're really looking forward to it.
Incredibly exciting. It's also a little bit scary, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, it is.
Because now you're going to be... before we move on to how everybody can get involved, I'm going to ask a very difficult question. Why... well, I'm assuming that there is, because there is a need, that there is a gap missing in environmental care within Malta. Why is that there? You talked about rangers from other countries. Why?
Yes.
Why is there a need for you to do what you're doing and set up an NGO?
Well, political. It's always a political thing. This is not only about Malta. All the European rangers share the same thoughts. A lot of it is political. There is no direct gain in protecting the environment. We only have sitting governments in a couple of years' time. All around Europe, it's the same system. So a lot of the political parties will or tend to more see the changes that will happen during those years because it will benefit them for the next election. So yes, some of the uncomfortable decisions that needs to be taken to protect the environment will not be the top of the agenda for a lot of people. That includes us as individuals as well. There are some things that maybe we should stop doing, but we are like, it's more comfortable to keep on. But yes, political it's a big thing, unfortunately. Lack of resources for all the departments that deal with this. And it all boils down to political stuff.
It's really interesting how you said that, because I think this is a conversation that we've had before, you and I, where, and you've made it very clear, political agendas tend to be for a short period of time that you know that you're going to be in power. Because why would you put in an agenda that is going to see the net benefit when you are no longer in power? And that, as you said, is not a Malta issue, that's a global issue. But unfortunately, so is the environment, is a global issue that has long-term lasting impact for every human being on this planet that's alive and will be born. So it really should be top of the agenda. But looking at it in that perspective, that there's no short-term gain or very little short-term gain and popularity, kind of explains why we're not more fired up about the environment. So how can people get involved? How can people support? I'm sure you would like support and help for this NGO that you set up, that you are putting yourself out there.
I mean, the whole concept of this NGO is that the people matters. They will be the eyes and ears. We will rely on reports from people. That they know that, for example, every Friday and Saturday there will be illegal dumping of waste in this site. We then have the resources to sit and monitor nearby. We will not monitor super close. We have our ways of doing things, so we can monitor in a safe way. But yes, we will rely on people to do this job. We will also rely on donations from people because we have pledged that we will not take any government funding at all, at least to start with, because of the political climate.
Right.
We have said that we need to be 100% independent. There cannot be any scenario where any entity or anyone giving a donation will say, well, I don't agree with what you're doing there. We do it this way because of safety issues, because of what we believe in the environment. And it's very black and white what we do. What is illegal, and we will document it, and we will bring the offenders to court together with the police. So we don't have time or energy to waste on this like balance game to keep people happy that donate. We are very clear with what we do, and that's why we will not take government funding. So with that, we of course lose a lot of the grants that are out there, but we do rely on public donations. So from the moment we are an NGO, we can actually kick that off as well with some fundraising.
Great. And you mentioned just back then, I want to pick up on this thing that you just said. You said about monitoring illegalities, because it's not the only thing that you do, but it's going to be a large part of what you do. I think in Malta, we're such a small environment. I think a lot of people are nervous about saying, listen, my neighbour's dumped it.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that there is the ability to get involved with the Malta Ranger unit and be able to report or comment without there being repercussions. It is a small country.
Yes.
We all know each other, and you're going to pretty much have some repercussions if you openly say my neighbour's dumping, because obviously you don't want that to come back on you.
That is the negative thing in Malta, with Malta being small. The good thing is that we can create change very, very fast in a tiny country. But yes, all the reports that come into the unit, they are anonymous. We will not even tell the police who the person is. We will just say we got a tip. We always then go on site and film it ourselves. So all the evidence we present in court will be by ourselves. It will not be that we take a footage of something that you filmed and present in court. We will be the ones filming it. So we take the reports from people, we go on site, we get the documentation ourselves, and then we take them to court.
You also mentioned education. You talked about education being a huge part of environmental change. Is that something that you guys are going to be involved in as well?
Yes, we will do school visits, for example. That will be quite a
Why
big
schools?
part. Because that's where the change is. The kids, when they grow up, we need to have them on board. We cannot lose another generation to environmental issues. We really need them to understand why this has to be done. So yes, schools will be a big one.
Cami, I absolutely love what you do. I utterly respect the fact that you are committed, empowered, and you are not compromising on following your dream to fight for the environment. What is the Cami Appelgren legacy that you would like to see here in Malta or beyond? If you could leave a legacy for the future, what would it be?
It wouldn't be anything materialistic. I actually got a message the other day which was very, very sweet. And he actually mentioned that this will be your legacy in Malta. He was out walking, and first I just got a message with an image, with a photo of this SUV kind of car that has Cami on the spare wheel at the back.
Yeah.
So I just got that. And I was like, what's this? And then he wrote, I saw this car and I thought about you and the fight that you have been tackling in Malta. And then I saw that there were litter next to the car. And I just started to clean it up because I got reminded of what you always tell people, that they matter. So he did this cleanup and he said, I felt so good afterwards. And he said, like, this will be your legacy in Malta, that people will all the time have this like feeling that I can do something. So yes, you cannot do everything, but you can do something. I think that hopefully is the legacy.
Cami, that already is a living legacy. You have affected so many people. You certainly affected my life, and I'm so, so thrilled. Thank you for passionately believing in the environment and not compromising, even at personal expense. Thank you also for sharing your story here on the She Word.
Thank you for having me.
We'll share the details of the Malta Ranger unit, and we'll come back and check in with you in probably a few months and see how things are going.
Exciting.